Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hi, I'm Allie, and today is my winter book recap. So I used to do these, or I tried doing these every month, and then they kind of became like every other month, and then like every couple of months, and there's something about these videos that I just do not like filming, editing, doing any of the stuff for. I also feel like to an extent it's pointless because all of the books that I talk about I have vlogs on. So I almost feel like a broken record, and I hate to put you guys through that. I hate to put myself through it in the editing process. So I just stopped altogether. But I know that there is people out there who really look forward to seeing what someone has read the previous month or previous months. So I thought, for myself, I'm going to try to do this every 3 months to make it a little bit more like seasonally, talking about books. But I'm also going to tone it down a little bit because I'm going to have links for you guys. If a certain book catches your eye and you're like, I want to know more about that, or I want to know your review about it, you can tap the link down in the description box or tap the link in the icon. I will make sure to link every single vlog that mentions one of the books that I talk about today. I think that this will be a way for me to not dread it as much, knowing that I don't have to do it every single month. I can just do it seasonally. And on top of that, I am going to just breeze through it. I'm not going to say a whole lot about books. I think more than anything, I will give you guys my rating and like a little brief something about it. Maybe talk a little bit more about my 5 stars or my favorite book of the month, which leads me to, not only am I going to tell you guys about the books I read the past couple months, but I'm going to be doing my makeup like I did before, kind of the books and beauty. I plan to do 3 months. But for this first one, I'm just going to tell you guys about the books I read in January and February. We're going to keep it fresh from the new year. If you want to see what I read in December, you can just check out my full 2023 wrap-up. I talk about books and show all the books that I read in that. I'm going to get ready. I'm going to talk about all the books that I read for January and February. Give you guys a little rundown and ratings, all of that, and then I am going to give you the stats. My stats for January, my stats for February. Today's makeup is going to be my everyday makeup. I was filling braids today. I don't know how I feel about it. I think it'll wrap all together with my makeup. I have been absolutely loving the Smashbox Photo Finish Illuminate Glow Primer. They did send this to me, but I have used so much of this. I'm almost out. I absolutely love this. Just gives like the perfect glow to your skin. And although it's the like photo finish line, it's not like silicone-y. It just feels like a moisturizer that gives your skin like that extra glow underneath your base products. All right, so we're gonna start in January. I wanna first talk about the books that I read during the Winterween Readathon video up above. I read 5 books for that vlog, and each one of them had a prompt from that readathon, so that is why these books were chosen. One of them ended up being my favorite book out of January, so that was pretty cool. So I read The September House by Carissa Orlando, and I gave this book 3 out of 5. So this follows a woman who lives in a house that is like her dream house. She absolutely loves this house, and we come to find out that she loves this house more than just about anything, including her husband. Her husband literally tells her like, look, I'm leaving. You can go with me or you can stay here, but I am leaving. And she stays in this house. This house is haunted by quite a few entities who like to just make themselves at home. And while not all of them are bad, one of them helps out around the house and she's constantly doing something to make their lives a little bit easier, but also at the same time, she's a busybody that constantly stays busy, so like they can't have company over or anything like that, because if they do, they can't keep this lady hidden. There's also a little boy ghost. I mean, That's always creepy in a book, having a little kid ghost that just kind of like walks around the house and is doing questionable things. And every September, this house goes up a scale in the eerie and horror aspect. The walls literally bleed. Question is there something more sinister that's also in this house? Because we have all of these entities and ghosts that are just walking around that seem to be harmless, but is there something much more darker in this home that drove the husband away? And when her daughter, so the couple who are kind of like retired, this is like their retirement, living in this house of their dreams, their daughter has been away for the entire time they've had this home, and she wants to come home and visit, and she finds out that not only did her dad leave, but like neither one of them have heard from him since. So he's potentially missing. She freaks out and comes home to help figure out what is going on, and that is where the book deteriorated for me. I loved the book up to that point. The daughter character really ruined it for me. She is a very whiny character. I understand that she's going through a lot, but I don't know. I just feel like there is those certain characters that just really take me out of the story, and she was one of them. Besides that, this book would have been an easy 4 or 5 star for me, but it is a 3 star. I used my Smashbox Halo. I swear this is not sponsored, or I don't have an affiliate link or anything. I wish, but this is the Healthy Glow All-in-One Tinted Moisturizer. These have just been like, they sent both of them to me, and I've just absolutely been loving them. I want to say that's my only Smashbox products I've been using. Oh, I lied. I've also been using the Halo concealer. They just work really well together, and I love how the most tiny amount of this like just really stretches, and I've been wearing this a lot on its own as well. I also read The Other People by CJ Tudor, and I'm going to link my 3 books by CJ Tudor if it's already out. I want to say for you guys it's coming out next week, so just stay tuned for it if it's not already out. If you're watching this later, I will try to have it linked in the description, but no promises, I forget. So this is a pretty fast-paced thriller. This is about a guy who is just on his regular, it seems like a regular day. He's driving home from work, and then he spots his little girl on the back of somebody's car. And at first he thinks, I'm just super sleepy, I did not see that correctly. And then she mouths daddy to him. And he tries to keep up with the car, but it's pretty much too late. He goes home to find that his wife has been murdered. And soon after, they have a funeral. But deep down his gut, he keeps on hoping that like his daughter's still out there, and he keeps getting these little clues, and then it spirals into this story where they find the vehicle. He's finding all these clues, he's connecting the dots. He's like, is my daughter still out there? What happened to her? Who took her? Who did this? And we also have some other stories going at the same time that have to do with the other people. And this is kind of like an organization on the dark web who are willing to do you a favor if you will do them a favor, and he just got wrapped up in the wrong group of people. It's a really good thriller. I think if you like CJ Tudor's writing, you will enjoy it, and I gave it 4 stars. I continued my journey into the Dark Tower series by Stephen King with The Drawing of the Three, which is book 2. I really wish it was book 3 since it has 3 in the title, but it confuses me every time. I gave this one 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. I felt like, for the most part, it did what I wanted for a continuation of the story, but I feel like it didn't really add a whole lot to it. It's kind of was like a side quest. Without giving too much away, this is a continuation after The Gunslinger, and this guy, the gunslinger, he is on this journey to the tower. And this is a little side quest mission that he has to go on, which leaves off from the first book where he's kind of wounded and injured, and he awakens to be on a beach, and he's really hurting, and he finds a doorway. And when he goes and opens the door, it's like he's looking through someone's eyes that are on like a plane. And he comes to find out that he can like not only talk to this person and their thoughts, but he can control them, almost like he's going into their body and controlling them, while leaving his body at the beach where the door's at. He's going to have to do this 3 times with 3 different doors and meet the people who could potentially go on this journey with him to the Dark Tower. It's a really interesting read. I like the concept of it, and that whole synopsis I gave you, it's super intriguing. My downfall was the fact that I just didn't really fall in love with any of the characters, and their like little stories inside their doors were not that appealing or entertaining to me whatsoever. But at last, I'm going to continue the Dark Tower series. I read another thriller. This one was recommended by Gabby, who did the Winterween, and this is No Exit by Taylor Adams. This 4 stars. I was so impressed with it that I've actually read another Taylor Adams since, and I want to read more. This follows a girl who is going through a lot, and she is on her way home to her mother, who is pretty much dying in the hospital, trying to get to her sister and her mother. And on the journey, there is this winter storm, so it's winter settings. It's like a blizzard. Like, you're just gonna have to pull over and stop for a little bit and then hopefully be able to get back out there on like your trip. So she stops at this convenience store and goes in, and there's other people doing the exact same thing. Like, everybody's trying to get somewhere and they can't because of the storm. So now they're all stuck together in this store, and she's slowly trying to figure out, you know, like what she thinks about these people. So then she goes outside for a little bit, and she finds in a van a little girl who is like tied up, duct tape over the mouth, kidnapped. And she's trying to figure out whose van this belongs to. It spirals from there. It takes you on a wild journey, and there's twists and turns. It's super, super entertaining, a little predictable, but really entertaining. There's also a movie to this, and I suggest it as well. It was really good. I read it and then seen that there was a movie, so me and James watched it together, and he really enjoyed it too. Bronzer, you guys, I'm still using my Revlon concealer for bronzer. I love this stuff. I just like, you know, go a certain amount of shades darker than my skin tone, and it just blends out so pretty. I know I'll change closer to spring and summer. I will probably be going a little bit more warm because it's a little cool, but I just really love it. If you're my skin tone, I use Latte for my bronzer. I use like the lightest shade, I believe. I think it's like shade 5 or 10. I just can't think of their names off the top of my head, for like regular concealer. And then this one is 55. So quite a few shades up, but I love it for my bronzer. Blush is Tower 28. I've been using this like every single day when I do my makeup. I love it, but I do need to like show some love to the rest of my blushes really bad. This is Power Hour shade. And my Ciate London, very, very loved Watermelon Burst setting powder. Okay, on a regular day, I've been using my Tower 28 spray, but I think I left it in my bathroom. So I'm going to be using the Ace Beaute Seal It Makeup Setting Spray. I have used this before, and I liked it when I did. Eyes are super easy for my go-to every day. I put powder on them, and sometimes I just leave it like that and throw on mascara maybe if I want to take it up another notch. I've just been using this KVD Beauty Dazzle stick in the shade Hail Surge. It's just so pretty, and it just gives a little shimmer to the eyes. 5th book for Winterween. I'm flying through my makeup and not my books, so I'm going to speed run this a little bit. But my 5th book from Winterween was Slewfoot by Brom, and oh my god, you guys, 5 stars. I fell in love with this story. We follow Abatha, who is this girl in the village who is so misunderstood, and just because she makes charms and likes, you know, her little witchy herbs and whatnot, she is looked at as this really bad person. You gotta know, this was like during the witch trial times, and so people are, you know, pointing at her saying witch, and it's not a good look for her. The love of her life just died, and so she's trying to pay back debt that they owe to be able to keep her little house and little farm, and people are just out to get her, and she makes a deal with Slewfoot, and Slewfoot is there to protect her, to help, to make everything thrive with Mother Nature. And it's written so beautifully. I just absolutely fell in love with it. Me and my son also finished the 4th book in the Lemony Snicket series of unfortunate events. It was The Miserable Mill. I've been giving all of these 5 stars because they're just such cute little kid books. I've been having such a good time reading them. We've actually slowed down. We have not finished the next one yet, so I have no more updates besides this one, but this one was probably my least favorite so far though. I will say that. Sucker for the first 3 though, so it could be that. I also read book 2 in the ACOTAR series, A Court of Mist and Fury. Obviously, like, this one is what everybody says is the best in the series. I really did like this one. Farah is getting married to Tamlin, and then she's having like these second thoughts and having a hard time with how much her life has been changing, so she is swooped away to the Night Court to spend her time that she's indebted to Rhysand. And we meet all the people of the Night Court, and she goes on a journey with them to find the missing pieces that they need to for the quest. I don't want to give too much away in case you haven't read the first one. I'm stumbling into this series, and it's at a slow pace. It really is. I enjoyed myself more with this one, but I'm still not like really looking forward to the next, although I am starting it and I'm trying to vlog the process. I did give this one a 4 after giving the first one a 3, so progress. I also read The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston, and I've heard amazing things about her romance. I'm so glad I finally read one from her. It was very sweet. This is a play with time and a romance where this girl is grieving the death of one of her aunts, and it was her aunt that she was super close with, who traveled with her all the time, did all these kind of things with her. She dies and she inherits the apartment that her grandmother had. And going into the apartment, she always remembers something her grandma told her about the play with time that this apartment had. And so we get to learn a little bit about the, I think I say grandma, but the aunt's life. And I think it was her aunt. We also get to experience Clementine's life, who is grieving with the death, but also she stumbles home and her apartment looks completely different. And it's because she has went back 7 years in time when her aunt or grandma is away and is subletting her apartment to this young fellow. It plays with time being 7 years in the present or going back 7 years in the past, where she sees this guy and they're falling for each other, and it's so freaking cute. And then going in the future and her and him not being together and her trying to figure out what happened. Why are they not together? Why does she not know him now? Will they end up together? It's super cute. I gave it 4 stars. I also read Shirley Jackson's The Road Through the Wall. This was for my Shirley Jackson book club that I've talked about in the past. I'm not gonna lie, I hated this book. I think I gave it 2 stars on Goodreads. I just really did not enjoy this whatsoever. I thought it was going to be interesting. It's very drama-filled, and it's kind of like an old-school Desperate Housewives vibe. All these snooty people on this road thinking they're better than everybody else, and it's just a story about everybody being in everyone's business, and nobody really has, like, that entertaining drama. So it just ends up just being a, what did I read? I just wasted so much of my time. I highly don't recommend it. My least favorite Shirley Jackson so far. To wrap up January and going into February, I started my Edgar Allan Poe Reads, and you guys, I'm still sucked into it. I'm still going. More to come on that soon. In January, I read his 3 that follow Auguste Dupont and The Murders in the Rue Morgue, The Mystery of Marguerite, I think. I could be butchering that. And then The Purloined Letter. These 3 follow the same kind of like detective person, and this is honestly like the start of what was mystery and thrillers. Like, this is what inspired Sherlock Holmes, so it's really cool. He was definitely fascinated by orangutans. But I really enjoyed reading these. They're not my favorite from him. I definitely prefer his horror over the mystery, but they were still really entertaining reads. 3 as a whole for story-wise, books-wise, rating-wise, I gave a 4. Descent into the Maelstrom is about a guy's first-hand experience surviving a night out at sea with a huge whirlpool, and yeah, his experience. And I gave it a 3. I mean, it was somewhat interesting, but it wasn't like, I guess, like earth-shattering. Hop Frog was an interesting read. This follows a little person who is bullied and made fun of for his looks, and he has his ultimate revenge. I gave it a 3. Gold Bug, I also gave a 3. This is kind of like, I guess, kind of like pirates. They're looking for their treasure, but one of them, it says that they're bitten by like a gold bug, and then they're trying to like go on like this mission to find this gold, and it's quite a time. Now my 3 favorites from January from him. Fall of the House of Usher, of course. This follows this guy who is called to this house, the Usher house. It is this well-known family. There is a brother and a sister, and this guy calls in there because his sister has come down with this sickness. Wow. She is dying, and dies, and now Roderick, the brother, is like almost like losing all of his sanity, going insane, and mentally, physically, like he is coming down with the sickness as well. It's a really fun one to read. I gave it 5. I also gave 5 to The Black Cat. Morbid, intense, and so good. This follows a guy who is pretty much just being like terrorized by a black cat until he reaches a point in insanity that he does morbid things to someone else. The Telltale Heart was also a 5-star for me. This is like a classic psychological thriller where this guy is having this strange urge to unalive somebody, and he is super paranoid and just like worried about this person and just doesn't know how to handle it, and there's just something about this person's eyes that are just freaking him out. It's morbid, it gets gory too, and it was so good. Now we're jumping into February, but I'm not done with Edgar Allan Poe because first part of February was the Horrorathon, and I read The Cast of Amontillado. This was about these 2 people that are friends, but are they? One of them feels like he's been betrayed and insulted by the other one, and so he's just out for revenge, and he's kind of like goofy. It's kind of satire of wanting to get his revenge, because you're just like, is he serious? Is he not? Oh boy, is he serious. We'll get his final act of revenge. I gave it 3 stars. I gave 3 stars to all of my books from the Horrorathon. Spoiler, if you're gonna watch that video. The Horror by David Sodergren. I enjoyed this one. This is about a lady who lives like on this island with a bunch of older people. She's older. She is just trying to live out the rest of her days in peace in her home. And this big corporation is buying out the land to turn it into like a golf field pretty much. And she's like, I'm not having it. All of the townspeople are like, we're not having it, yet slowly they keep accepting checks and leaving. She's standing her ground. She's very feisty. And one day when she's about to give up all hope, at this point, not only is she being like, not even asked, told to, but threatened. And it's getting intense when this horror washes up on shore, and it's going to change her life in the most gory, gruesome way possible. It's body horror. It's such a wild time. My only critique was I really don't like how certain scenes were written by this man. But besides that, I had a really good time with it. Like I said, I gave it a 3. Then The Broken Places by Blaine Daigle, I gave a 3 as well. This follows a guy who's just had the most traumatic year in his life. He's inherited this family's cabin, so he's gonna go out in these secluded woods in this winter storm with his buddies for a bro weekend, and things just go haywire. We have this winter storm coming in, there's tons of noises going on, and all the animals are acting very, very strange. It's a wild time. I also read Alice, which is the first book in a trilogy by Christina Henry. Gave this a 3 as well. This is a dark retelling of Alice in Wonderland, and while I did like the aspects of a dark retelling of this story, there was so many things of the characters that I absolutely liked, but so many things of the plot that I absolutely hated. The abuse and essay talk and that being the main factors of what makes these people bad really took me out of it. I really wish it was like some other type of bad thing that would make them dark, and to make this into bad guys in a dark retelling than just straight up essay stuff. I wasn't really expecting that. And I hate it because I do feel like this could be a really good series. I'm still tempted to get back into it, so if you've read them and you've liked it as it's went on, please let me know so I know if I should continue it. I also read some books for Valentine's Day. It was a rather bloody Valentine's Day week. First of all, I read some poetry by Megan Fox, Pretty Boys Are Poisonous. I didn't really rate this or give it a rating because it was very personal and very nonfiction, so I wanted to respect that. I thought it was beautifully done. I feel like so many of them were so beautiful. It does touch on a lot of things that could be triggering, so definitely check your trigger warnings. But it definitely is I think it was a way for her to really hash it out, to really get her story out there, tell her truth, and it's very raw and vulnerable and just very beautifully done. I also finally read The Wishing Game by Meg Schaefer and was a little disappointed. I gave this one a 3-star. I did like it, but overall it read very YA. It wasn't really the fantasy that I was hoping it was going to be. This follows a teacher who is struggling with her personal life, trying to have a stable home, trying to have a stable income. She is a teacher's aide. She's hoping to be a teacher. And there is this little boy at school that she is really wanting to adopt. The problem is she doesn't have the money, the funds to do this, or the proper stable home. And so she has not been accepted to do so. But then she's magically accepted to go and compete with other fans of this writer who used to write these children's books on Clock Tower Island. And they get to go to the actual Clock Tower Island to compete and meet people. And it was just, there was a lot going on with it. It was very cliche. You seen everything coming, not even a mile away, but 5 miles away. It was just way too much for me that it just really took me out of it. It was rather cheesy in moments too, and just not, I feel done in the way that was, I guess, to me, it wasn't even realistic at all, although I feel like it was supposed to be more realistic. And it just really took me out of it. I didn't really care for the romance that much. It was kind of weird. I don't know why it was thrown in there in the first place. Everything was just too good to be true. I feel like what I can say coming out of it was I liked the idea of the writer. I liked the idea of the Clock Tower Island and how whenever it, if it's at 2 o'clock, it's, at this certain location. 3 o'clock, it's at this certain location. The island's mapped out like a clock. Really cool. What took me out of it was all the other things that were just super cliche and too good to be true. I also do have to say, though, I really appreciate the talk on how hard it is for people to adopt, because it is a real thing, and there's so many kids out there that need to be adopted, or there's so many people that want to adopt and just struggle, and this is an ongoing thing. It is quite the process, and obviously for good reasons, for certain situations, but there's also really good people out there that really want to adopt and just can't, and I'm all for making sure people have, the means and stable home to do so, but at the same time, when people are trying so hard to adopt and to be that selfless of a person, don't treat them like shit. I don't know. It was just very raw and real. I will shift gears a little bit because I'm ranting. Next up was The Warm Hands of Ghosts by Catherine Arden. I really loved this one. I read it right after a 5-star, so I feel like it probably could have gotten a little bit of a higher rating for me had I not just read an amazing 5-star, which I'll talk about in a minute. But I still really liked this one. It's kind of like the love between a brother and a sister and how far their love goes for each other as the brother goes to war and then is pretty much missing. The sister is like out of her mind and doing everything she can in her power to locate him and to figure out what happened to her brother. And it's a really entertaining journey, heartbreaking journey, but also both scales following her and her journey and then following him from the past up into the point where she is at is a really good time. It's very, like I said, heartbreaking. It's based on like a real war, a real time period, and so it is a little intense, but there's also a little bit of like a entertaining fantasy element to it of having this person in the story who's playing some mind games and kind of controlling some of the characters. It was overall a really cool paranormal touch. Like it had like a little paranormal touch to it. It was a cool story. I did enjoy it and I gave it 4 stars. I actually kind of wish that there was a little bit more of the romance aspect to it than what there was, and then it would have been perfect for my Valentine's Day week. I also read Bride by Ali Hazelwood. It's one of my most anticipated reads, and let me tell you guys, most intense Ali Hazelwood book I've read to date, and I've read all of her books. I did not know where she was going to go with this, but she really said, this is going to be an Ali Hazelwood book, but it's going to be about werewolves and vampires, and she went with it. If you're scared of the vampire and werewolf elements, but you love Ali Hazelwood, don't be. This is an Ali Hazelwood book. It's cheesy at moments. It's so corny and just funny at times. I was blushing all the way through this book, you guys, and I was so giddy. I absolutely ate it up. I know it's not going to be for everyone, and that's okay. It has its moments. I could have done without the spicy, smutty scenes for sure. That really just did not do it for me. But the rest of it, I was kind of here for. I thought it was interesting enough. I thought it was cute. I kind of wish the overall plot, going more like fantasy-wise, would have been a little bit more entertaining, but I liked the mystery element of it and trying to figure out Misery, the main character who's the vampire, her point of being willing to just be traded from the vampires to the werewolves to marry a werewolf. She has a reason behind her decision for doing so, but I wish that decision was a little bit more concrete into the story. Like it was to an extent, but I really wish that there was more to it, or maybe even that we were left hanging a little bit longer than what we were. There's a lot of layers of it though, and I think it was super entertaining for Ali Hazelwood's first like branch away from just regular romance, and I think it's something that she needed because we were getting so much of love and STEM, which I loved. I ate up like every single book, but it was nice to kind of have a little change of pace there. I'm always down for a vampire book, let me tell ya. It's a guilty pleasure, what can I say? I love Ali Hazelwood. I gave it a 5-star. I don't do that very often with romances. So that week I also read another 5-star, Vampires of El Norte by Isabel Cañas. Absolutely amazing. We have another story that is like historical fiction, and this is like a Mexican folk tale of these vampire creatures. I really love the way she did the vampires in this book so much, making it more of like this mythical like legend or folktale. But this follows Nina and Nestor, and they're kind of having this little romance going on. They're not supposed to, because her father ultimately is going to do an arranged marriage to benefit the family, and she's not about that life. And so she's falling for Nestor, and he wants to prove himself so that he can get the love of his life, but also, you know, take care of her and support her and make her family proud. One night, they're out together, sneaking out like they're not supposed to be, and she gets attacked by one of these creatures. And he carries her all the way home. He takes her home, but ultimately is told that she's dead. And so he goes on the run because he's so miserable. He's so guilty. Like, he feels so bad, so guilty. And, you know, she was the love of his life. So he goes on with his life, but ultimately, and then way down the line, he finds out she never died. Like, she was brought back to life, I think, like, by her grandma or something. And the story has, like, some sci-fi elements to it, for sure. Fantasy elements, but it's just so good. Now they're, like, going to war, and she's going with them to be kind of like a healer, and he is going to, like, make sure that she's, like, okay, and he's ultimately, like, protecting her, and it's kind of like second chance romance, which normally I don't like, but with Nina and Nestor, I was here for it. I absolutely loved it. I ate it up. 5 stars for me. I also had another vlog, Out There Screaming. This is a black horror anthology edited by Jordan Peele. I did a whole video on it where I was watching Jordan Peele's movies and reading this. I had a good time with it. There's 19 stories. They are very high on the sci-fi spectrum and lower on the horror spectrum, but I did enjoy it. But I do rate them as a whole, as how many 3 stars did I have? How many 4 stars did I have? Where does that fall? And the average rating I could give it was a 3 star, but I did have some 5 stars within the story. It's a good vlog if you guys want to go check it out. I really talk about each of the stories and my ratings and all of that through it. It's not really spoilery either, so if you haven't read it and you're worried about that, you're good. And I'm currently cooking up 2 other videos, well, actually 3 other videos for the rest of these books. So one of them is my other Taylor Adams read. This was The Last Word by Taylor Adams. This is about a woman who is out living in this, like, Airbnb, like, taking care of this house for this lady. Like, this is what she's getting paid to do. We find out that she's had a really tough year with her estranged husband, and is just kind of wanting to have a secluded life right now. Like, she needs to do some healing. While she's there, she is flying through the ebooks, let me tell you. And one of them, she is, like, recommended to read in a funny, haha, like, this is a terrible book way. But she reads it and she's like, oh my gosh, this is so terrible. So she ends up writing a bad review. But then the author reaches out to her and is like, why are you doing this review? Take it down now. He ends up threatening her, and she's like, I don't care what you do, I'm not taking down my review. And then it's like she's starting to be stalked by this person who wrote this. And it's a thriller to find out, who is this author? Can he actually find her in this secluded location out in the middle of nowhere? And will she survive? I guess. Ooh, I think this one, I don't really know if I landed on a rating for this one. I think if I did, I think I gave this one a 3 or a 4. I'll put it up here for you guys, but I think I gave it a 3 or a 4. For another whole video, I read Dead 11 by Jimmy Giuliano. This is about an island that is not stuck in the 90s, but they're living like they're stuck in the 90s, and it's like they have to, but why do they have to? And this follows a woman who, well, it follows a guy whose sister went to investigate the island, and then she went missing. So now he's going to the island trying to figure out what happened to her. His sister went to the island investigating because after her young son died, there was messages in his room that led her to the island. It's a really cool read. I do mention in the video that will be out probably this month to read the audiobook if you get a chance to. It's super, super good. different chapter layouts. Like some chapters are like text messages between two characters, some chapters are letters from one character to another, and some chapters are like interview style. And on the audiobook, you can hear like the click of the recorder. And it sounds like a voice, like we're listening to the tape on the tape recorder. It's really cool. Spoiler for that video, I gave that one a 5. I really liked that book. I also read Notes on an Execution by Dania. I'm not quite sure how you pronounce her last name. I really liked this one as well, though. This one was a hard one for me to listen to. I kind of tandem read this one physically and with the audio. I had a really hard time with it. Again, I talk more about it in the video that's coming soon, but this follows a few different point of views, one of them being a guy who is on death row and days leading up to his execution. And then we follow 3 very important women that were in his life. One being his mother, who had to put him, or left him pretty much, and he had to be put into the foster and adoption system because she got pregnant very young, and it was a very domestic violence situation. But her life going through that then, which was really dark. Also, her life later on finding out the outcome of her son. Then we follow the sister of his wife, and also the person from his childhood who is now a detective. I can't remember what her role is, but she is ultimately the one that's going to put him behind bars and is trying to pin him for these cases because she has credible evidence. It's a heart-wrenching story. It's so hard. There's so many good subjects of conversations to be had with this one, but it is very intense, and I got emotional with this one for sure. I landed at a 4-star with it. And lastly, you guys, falling back into Edgar Allan Poe to end out my month, and strangely, I started my month of March with Edgar Allan Poe too, just like I did January to February, so it's just gonna be an Edgar Allan Poe year. I'm sorry, I'm down a rabbit hole and I can't dig my way out. I did fit in 3 of his at the end of the month as well, though. The first one being The Businessman. I'm going to be rather quick with these because I know this video is already so long. Oh my gosh. The Businessman is about this cocky guy who is just scamming people to get successful and then just boasting and bragging about it. It's satire, but it was alright. I gave it a 3. Some Words with a Mummy. This one was rather too long for me. I kind of would like doze off and be like, oh, I'm still listening to this, because I am kind of listening to most of these, and I just had a really hard time staying entertained with this one. I felt like certain aspects of it were cool, but in the end, it was too long and boring for me, if I'm being honest. And honestly, it wasn't even that long. It's a short story. This is about a doctor who is bringing the narrator's point of view into his, like, you know, operation room to unwrap like mummified remains. And I mean, it's Edgar Allan Poe. You can only imagine which direction it's going to go in from there. And the last one was The Premature Burial, and this is about people's takes on a bunch of what it sounds like premature burials. So a bunch of people who are being buried alive and their accounts on it, and it is rather dark and so eerie. I like learning about things like that or hearing about things like that. Not that I like things like that to happen, but I do find things like that intriguing, and so I was very invested with this one and I rather enjoyed my time. I think I gave it a 5-star. And this is the look, you guys. This is my everyday look. I change up the lip a lot, but very minimal. Just remembered I said that was the only Smashbox products I'm using, but I'm also using Smashbox mascara. I still love this duo. The Photo Finish Extension Nourishing Lash Primer, and then the SuperFan mascara. But on the lips, it's Give Beauty by Gwen Stefani. This is her liquid lipstick in the shade Flannel. Now, I may end up changing how I do my book stats for these videos, but for now I'm going to give you my stats for each month. So for January, I read 16 books, 3,522 pages. My moods were, the top moods were dark, tense, and mysterious. Close-up adventurous, which is cool that I still have that there, and then a touch of emotional, hopeful, reflective, and funny. I kind of want to know which one was funny. The 7-Year Slip. Okay. Pace, I read medium the most, followed up by fast-paced and then slow pace. The most I have less than 300 pages, which makes sense. I read a lot of Edgar Allan Poe short stories, but followed up with 300 to 499 pages, and then the least being 500 plus. I read a lot of shorter books. 100% fiction, of course, and then horror, classic, short stories, and mystery and thriller were my top 5. Also fantasy kind of tied with thriller, which was really cool, but we do also have a little bit of middle grade, romance, speculative fiction, and historical. My average rating was a 3.94. And now moving on to February. So in February, I also read 16 books at 3,873 pages. My moods were exactly the same, dark, tense, mysterious, but my fourth one, instead of adventurous, was emotional. I also had a little touch of funny, adventurous, sad, reflective, and hopeful. The sad being Pretty Boys Are Poisonous and The Warm Hands of Ghost, which I agree. Pace, I was at 56% medium paced, 31% fast pace, and 13% slow pace. Almost even here, 56% were less than 300 and 44% were 300 to 499. I read 94% fiction and 6% nonfiction just because of Pretty Boys Are Poisonous. Genres top 5 are horror, short stories, classics, thrillers, and fantasy, but there's also romance, historical, contemporary, poetry, mystery, literary, and crime. My average rating was a 3.73, and that wraps up my winter reads from January to February. You'll have to let me know which books were your favorite during these months, and also if you liked this concept of the video of everything I've changed, I guess. This was much longer than I anticipated, so I will end it here. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me for this long video though. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you in my next one. I'm gonna die in LA traffic, watch me crash my fucking car and see your couch. Don't wanna finish up this episode before you cut